Good evening. It's Monday, July 7th, 2025. Welcome to episode 116 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. And got a few different topics worthy of discussion for this evening, I believe. And it's kind of a last minute podcast thrown together. And I don't know how long we'll be on. But I did want to pop on tonight because honestly, these Monday nights, these discussions are as much of a surprise to us as I think they are for the people who might be tuning in to listen. And
I think they're more so a surprise for me.
Yeah. Why do you say that they're more of a surprise to you?
Because I'm usually cooking or taking care of the chickens or doing laundry or whatnot, and you're putting it together. So it's a very last minute.
Right.
For me.
Yeah. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy popping on here and popping off, sounding off, if you will. And I think the thing that's really awesome about doing live streams is that they're unedited, they're raw, and it's kind of in the moment. So I guess with that brief introduction out of the way, Rebecca, why don't you tell me how you're doing this evening?
Well, obviously we talked about having a new car. So let me paint you a picture. You're out grocery shopping and you're coming out to put the groceries in your car, and your car starts talking to you and starts making fart sounds. Now, this is all fine and dandy if there were no other people in the parking lot. But there are people getting in and out of their cars, and my car is honking and farting. And I'm completely embarrassed.
Right. So I was actually just testing out one of the features that it has. It's actually pretty cool where, you can pull it up and it's got the cameras all the way around it. So you can visualize what's taking place around the car. Plus you can actually press the button and talk to anybody that might be trying to intrude upon your vehicle or, vandalize it or whatever. Like you can let them know that they're not alone, in other words. So I wanted to try that out and see if it worked, but I'm going to have fun with that in the future. You can bet on it. Yeah. She doesn't like it because I can track her everywhere she goes. And I think
I don't like it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I could say, oh, well, she'll be here in 5 minutes because it shows me that she's on the way. Or what are you doing over there, Rebecca?
That's exactly what I don't like. So why did you go to that end of town? What was over there? Why did you need to go there?
Right. Should have just loudly yelled, "Gotta love taco night." Yeah. Yeah. So what did it sound like?
I'm fixing up that Focus, and that's what I'm going to drive. You can drive the Tesla.
Oh man, no problem. That thing's pretty badass. I'm into it.
And I will track you everywhere you go.
It's fine. I got nothing to hide. See, I'm not worried about it.
I'm not worried about it.
But yeah, man, we almost just didn't make it there. I tried to go on about 5 minutes early, and then I pushed the button to go on the live stream, and then all of a sudden something jammed up. And so I had to delete the live stream and load it back up. And, here we are again. But gosh, damn it, man.
But you know what?
116 episodes and we're still messing it up. What?
You know what?
What?
Bobby was still first.
Yeah, man. What's up, Bobby Spags? Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. We never know who's going to join. It's always just mostly a lot of times just a conversation between Rebecca and I.
Yeah, but probably the only time we actually sit down and talk.
Anymore. You're so busy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Blame me.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm used to it.
Yeah. But anywho, what I was thinking about is that, gosh darn it, man, the year is half over. 6 months of the year gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now we're into the 7th month. And I always think, what have I gotten done? And I think it's always a good time to pause and reflect on any of the goals that maybe I had or you had or anybody else that's listening had. How are we doing? Are we doing like we thought we were going to do, or have some plans slipped? And so I don't know, let's talk about it a little bit, share about maybe some of the celebration things we can celebrate and some of the things that maybe we think we can do better on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I believe you are more goal oriented in the fact that you set goals at the very beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm one of those people that set goals, but my goals kind of evolve throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
So much like the run, that was not, it wasn't a goal, but it was something that I decided to do, much like the run coming up. It was
Right.
not something that was planned, but I decided to do that. And so for me, my goals evolve through the year, and I kind of, at the end of the year, reflect back at what has transpired.
Right.
The one thing that I can say that we did talk about was that we needed a new deck, and that has not happened.
Yeah, we've actually been talking about that since we started doing these live streams.
No, farther than that.
No. I mean, since we've been doing these live streams, that's been a topic of discussion that has not gone away. So I will have to say that, it would be nice to have a deck. It's been a while since we've had a deck, and it would be nice to use that side of our house. And we're going to have to make a commitment to do that. But we've committed to so many other things, and just like you were saying, you don't. It kind of evolves throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had a lot of expenses that were unanticipated, right?
Right. And the deck is something we can do without, much like the dishwasher.
Right. Much like other things that need to be done. But, we've made a lot of progress. We've gotten our vehicles primarily much better.
They're up and running.
Right.
They're doing good.
Yeah.
Have a dishwasher, poor thing. The top rack really wants to fall down. And I just baby it along. And as long as nobody else touches it, which I don't think offends anybody because they don't have to help do dishes, then it works. But
we're making it happen. Hatfield Homestead in the house. Hello from Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
And that is a good looking German Shepherd you got there on your thing there. Dog person. I like that. We're dog people too.
Ours is sleeping right behind us because she's afraid to get too far away because she's afraid we might go somewhere without her.
Yeah, she's pretty needy. I would say for me, I guess, the thing, that I'm recommitting to, and I don't know if you want to recommit to anything, Rebecca, but I think I want to just recommit to the idea that, things aren't as good as maybe we think it is. In the standpoint of, I believe a lot of us, including myself, probably felt somewhat of a relief when Trump came into the office, and there was less of a kind of a government that was kind of going out of control as far as looking in on people and targeting people for certain things that they were saying. And we went through this whole weird period from 2020 to, essentially when Biden left office.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's just been this renewed optimism. And in saying that, I can feel myself taking my foot off the gas a little bit with regard to some of the things that I have been very committed to over the past number of years with regard to my homesteading around here. I don't know if that's partially due to that, but it's also partially due to the fact that we have been making so much progress. When you get to a certain point, you feel like, I can ease off of that in those areas and maybe focus on something else. There's always this tendency, at least for me, to be moving forward with making ourselves better each day. But I can definitely feel a little bit of easing off the gas of that. And I need to remind myself to recommit to understanding that things can turn on a dime when you're talking about the need for preparedness and the need to be self-reliant. You don't realize what the need is until shit really goes bad. And just because you're not in a position where things are super bad right now doesn't mean that they can't turn on a moment's notice. And I think that that's what I would recommit myself to. And I don't know if you have anything that you are wanting to recommit to as far as maybe some goals for the year.
Yeah, I was very good at having things stocked up, and I still do because I think I kind of get stuck in routines. So I still do, but not quite as much. And I would be more comfortable having certain items in the house that I knew that I could rely on. I do catch myself thinking, oh gosh, did I buy that extra uh, thing of mustard? And I'm so pleased that when I open the cabinet and it's there, I'm like, yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I just think we can probably do a better job, both of us, by making sure that we're not taking our eye off the prize, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right now around here, and I said this last week, and it's going to continue to be this way for a number of weeks, I think, moving forward, but it's harvest time for us. And there's a lot of things around here that need to come out of the ground. And that is more or less taking precedent with all of the things that Rebecca is doing in the kitchen. And, I'm preparing, I'm preparing some of the beds that are going to be, planted in succession. Now that I've taken some of the stuff out of those beds, I'm starting to do some things like preparing for like weed abatement, for bringing in compost. And it's just a never ending cycle that needs to take place. But you are the one that's taking the brunt of that right now with all of the food preservation stuff.
As they're coming in, and I have tomatoes and onions and garlic, and they're just taking over my kitchen.
Yeah.
You know how freaky I am about that.
Yeah.
I really like to see my counters. So I have just been crazy in figuring out places where I can store the tomatoes, or not tomatoes, but onions, as well as freeze drying them and dehydrating.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with the harvest. Is it something that you feel like you're keeping up with, or do you feel overwhelmed with the amount of produce that needs to be harvested and or preserved? And then talk a little bit about, what tools do you have available in order for you to do that with?
It is overwhelming. It actually is overwhelming when there is just so much there. But I have, as we started to state, several methods: the freeze dryer, the canning, dehydrating. And so you've
got a couple of different methods of canning. What are you doing there? Because I've seen you do a couple of different things.
So they can be water bath. Say the tomatoes can be water bath, or they can be pressure canned.
Yeah. And why do you do one over the other?
Well, one, I can only do quart size, so that limits the amount. The water bath, actually, I can get, I should say, pint size, for the pressure canner. I can do quart size in the water bath.
So you can do more with the water bath. So I can do
more with the water bath.
Yeah.
But I can also do them simultaneously, so I can get more going.
Right. Yeah, that's good. So right now we are running our freeze dryer 24/7. It's running nonstop right now. And so what are you I think there's something getting ready to come out of there here in another hour or something, but what's in it right now?
There are onions in there, which will be used as is. They're diced to go into meals, but they also will be ground up for onion powder.
Mm.
So there's different plans.
How are you storing them?
They are being stored in jars with I know the packets, but I can't ever remember what they're called.
The desiccant packets.
Yeah, to help keep them dry.
Yeah, to keep the moisture out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. And then we've also got another drying method. What is that?
The dehydrator.
Right. Were you going to do anything with the onions or anything else with that? Because we've got peppers to do, which would be great to freeze dry. We could freeze dry carrots. We got a shit ton of carrots out there that we don't have cold storage. And so we're going to have to do something to not lose that.
Well, the carrots actually would be better pickled.
Are you going to pickle those?
Yes.
Okay. So just different options for what you can do right now. And I think you're doing a little bit of all of that, correct?
Yes, because I can do them all at once. I mean, it's kind of time consuming to dice
Right.
it all up, but once you get it all diced up, then you can get the trays in the freeze dryer, get it going. You can,
Right.
get the pressure canner going in there, and then go ahead and usually for the dehydrator, I do that out in the garage because usually what I'm dehydrating has very strong aroma.
Yeah.
And that's anyway.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want my kitchen smell like that. So
the person that would say, that's a lot of work. I can just go down to the store and I can buy diced tomatoes, or I can buy whatever I want from the store. What would you say to that person, and why is it that it's important maybe to do it yourself?
Well, if you don't mind the preservatives put in your food, then and the cost of what it would cost, then I would say go down to the store. It's a lot of work, but there's a lot of accomplishment in doing it yourself and knowing what it is that you're eating.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. But another thing that I would add on to that is just the fact that if you need to do that, you know that you can do that and you have the ability to do that. Because when you are completely reliant on somebody else picking your food and then preserving your food and then taking it to a store, you're completely at somebody else's mercy. Now, I will say that there's a ton of stuff that we buy from the store. It's not like we're sitting here saying, oh, well, we don't, we grind our own mustard and we make our own butter and we make, we don't do that. But there are things
I made butter in kindergarten. That's probably the only time I've ever made butter.
I'd like to see you make butter again.
I know you want the bonnet, the whole dress.
Is there any chance? Is there any chance I can get you a butter churn? Huh? Cool.
Maybe.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on? Potpourri of life. Laura, how you been? Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, we haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, welcome to this evening's discussion. And we've got Dean Mullis in the house. Always a pleasure to see Dean.
Hey.
So welcome, man. Good to see you. Hope the sheep are doing good. Yeah.
Yes. Was he here when we talked about ours no longer being here?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was or not, but yeah, we got those sheep out of here. So more food preparation, more food preservation for you. And that's going to be probably a staple of what we do around here for the next.
So here's the craziness
next few weeks. And go ahead.
With all of the jars, you have them all filled up full of tomatoes and whatever you're freeze drying or dehydrating or water bathing, whatever you're using your jars, and they're filling up your cabinets. But as you're using them, those jars come back and they still have to be stored somewhere.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
It is amazing.
Isn't that
they
something?
take up a lot of space when they're empty.
Yeah.
It seems like they take up less space when they're full.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, it's something that we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future, I guess. It's just harvest time, and we're not unique in this. Everybody else that grows a garden is doing the exact same thing that we're doing. And I would just say that right now's the time where we just can't really get away too much. One of the commitments that we made this year was to do a little bit less on the homestead as far as like committing ourselves to being here as much. And so we've downsized with some of our animals and different things that we've got going around here, which was all part of the plan for this year. But right now is just that period of time where it's like, yeah, you just can't leave for weeks on end. I mean, we were able to squeak away when I did my race a few weeks back, but you definitely notice it when you come home and things that should have been harvested are either eaten by the birds or they're rotting on the vine or what have you. And you're just wasting all of the effort of putting into your garden. So
see, that's where the skills of my mom take place. Where like when the cheese gets molded, you just cut around the mold and you eat the good stuff.
Well, that's the way to do it, man. That's how they did it back in the day, right? They didn't have all the money and everything. Dean Mullis says, just put the guinea hen out of the oven. Never had one before. You're going to have to let me know how that goes. I imagine if it was a young bird, it probably would taste just fine. But if it's anything older, man, those old birds, man, they're not going to do well in the oven. They gotta render them down for a while.
Aren't guinea pigs like small chickens?
Well, no, those are those loud, those fowl.
Oh, like the one that landed in the yard.
Yeah, they run around and chirp, and they make eat ticks out of the. They're just this, like, obnoxious bird. So I don't know. Let us know how that one tastes, Dean. I bet you if you season it right, it'll probably taste just like any other bird. But cool. Let's see here. Laura says, it seems as though the jars multiply as we empty them.
Exactly.
But so very grateful to have them for preserving. Yeah, it's a really important skill. It's one that I think that a lot of people lost over the years because it used to be a real thing. I mean, that was just the way it was, I think, for a lot of families. Not so much in my family. I was a latchkey kid, nuclear family type deal. Grew up on a farm, but my mom wasn't canning shit. She would go to the store and buy, cans of tomato sauce and all that. And my dad grew an amazing garden every year, but she didn't preserve any of it. We just ate it fresh, so it's like a lost art. But I think a lot more people since 2020, when everybody kind of freaked out with the COVID and the overreach from the government, people started going, oh, what's this homesteading thing? Maybe I'll give that a go.
It's amazing how many gardens that we saw pop up around our town. And there actually still are.
Yeah.
People are putting in gardens, some in places you really question.
Yeah.
Like really close to the road.
Yeah.
But
DHT, welcome. Thanks for joining us. People's Republic of Maryland in the house. Yeah. The price of a new case of canning jars is through the roof. Huh.
It is crazy.
Is it really?
I looked at a case and it was like $28.
What?
I think.
Really?
Yeah. And I went, you know what? I already have too many jars. I don't need them.
I wonder what the cause of that is, if it's something to do with the tariffs or whatever, or just a supply chain issue, or if people are starting to like get to the point where they're glomming onto that stuff. And the supply is just not meeting the demand. I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I remember. Yeah, for sure. Let's see here.
I can tell you this. Our daughter loves the rings that go in the jars.
Yeah.
They work out wonderful as an armful of bracelets.
Huh. Yeah.
She heads straight for the cabinet. She knows exactly where those are at.
You said our daughter?
Our daughter, not I said our daughter-in-law, I think, but I meant our granddaughter.
Yeah. Laura's saying that, no, it's not the tariffs that's causing the increase in the cost. It's people just being greedy, kind of like a run on the toilet paper scenario, where everybody's like, oh, got to go get some jars now because people are getting jars. And I don't know. It's just kind of it's a weird thing how people start to hoard things, even if they don't need them. But good thing we're prepared, and we've got plenty of jars and plenty of lids, by the way, because the lids are kind of the thing that is a one-time use only. See,
that was another thing. Back when we were ultra preparing, I had ordered just cases of those.
Yeah, it's smart. It's smart because that's really the thing that like people can't get, right? They take a run on it. It's like toilet paper. But I wanted to talk a little bit about just because it's so nice to have food in your zone 1. And do you know, Rebecca, what permaculture, in permaculture, they zone it out. And do you know what zone 1 actually is?
I am not 100% sure of what all of the zones are. If I were to guess, I would say zone 1 is something that is remotely closest to your house, but that's all I can tell you about it.
That's a pretty good guess, I would say. So let me explain it. There's generally 5 zones when you're talking about, permaculture zone design, with 5 being the outermost zone that you visit less frequently. So that might be toward the outer reaches of your property. You're rarely going to go there. It's out like by the pond or whatnot. That would kind of be our zone 1. I rarely go out there.
Not our zone 1.
Or excuse me, our zone 5, excuse me. And so, each zone in descending order is closer in proximity to your physical house. So as it goes down, it gets closer to your house, the numbers go down. And zone 1 in permaculture is the spot closest to your home, as you indicated. And it's designed for, general use. It's generally things that you might want to plant there that should have, like food or medicinal value. And that's the way that I look at it. I don't know if everybody looks at it in that way, but if you're putting in a food forest or an edible landscape or something that is a polyculture type of an arrangement, I like to see it with having food or medicinal value. I very rarely plant things just for aesthetics, unless they self-plant themselves and they have some kind of real aesthetic beauty. I don't really get too carried away with like, oh, I'm going to put these flowers here, because there's so many things that have food or medicinal value that flower. And not only having that food or medicinal value in that zone 1, but you might have something like a compost bin, right, that you go out and you dump your scraps in or what have you, or maybe a worm type farm or something like that that might need regular attention. So you're going to want it in fairly close proximity. You're going to be passing back and forth frequently. And so it's more or less just all about kind of efficiency, not only efficiency in your movement, but just the efficiency in being able to manage that space. And it's, it's important to have things that are super close like that. So like, as you'll note out here, we've got these beds and they're like hugel mounds, right? They're a hugel mountain, or often they might be referred to, you might hear them say hugel culture, which is basically just a mound with heavier material on the inside, where that heavier material is going to break down over time. It's going to not only retain water, but it's going to release its nutrients back into the soil. And so that's going to help to save water. It's going to help to feed the soil life, which in turn is going to feed the plants, and it's going to help to boost your yields. And so I've got a, hugel mounds and different things in my beds around here that promote that, but it's all within that zone 1. Okay.
But you do have some flowers in there, because don't you want to attract bees to kind of pollinate?
Yeah. And as I said, having food or medicinal value, most of the time, the things that I plant in there, they're going to flower, right? Sunflower, comfrey, rosemary. These are all flowering plants that produce a bloom that is going to attract certain pollinators or different beneficial insects. And so I rarely plant things. I do have a couple of things out there that I think, oh, these are kind of cool. I really like them because they're long lasting bloom, and aesthetically, I like something that flowers for a long time and provides that show. But it's mostly, and kind of where I'm going with that is that I think it's important when you're planting something like that to consider planting a polyculture. So difference between a polyculture and a monoculture is a monoculture would be something like this field that we've got to the left over here, where there's 100 and something acres of just walnuts, or you might have 100,000 acres of just corn. And so you really want to avoid doing that because it doesn't really mimic nature very well. If you look at nature, there's nothing in nature that grows like that. And so the problem with doing that, it's very good for conventional agriculture because they're able to farm it, harvest it, treat it all kind of the same, and they get a very consistent product out of it. The problem with doing that is that it can, everything is competing for the same thing within the soil, right? There's no difference in the root depths. So they're all at that same depth competing for the same nutrients, right? There's no deeply taprooted things versus shallow things. There's none of that happening underground. But then above ground, you're also signaling to anything that might want to use that as something like a pest to come in. They're going to go, oh, there's 1,000 acres of corn. Sweet. There it is. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to breed and I'm going to flourish and I'm going to eat the shit out of that corn. And so when you get stuff like that, that's why they have to not only put so many chemicals back into the soil, because they're not doing anything to protect the soil. They're just extracting from the soil. So they have to put a lot back in it to grow the next crop, right? So they bring in anhydrous ammonia, they bring in all kinds of different fertilizers and things so that they can grow the next year's crop. But they're also having to spray a shit ton of pesticides because, hey, look, 1,000 acres of corn, yummy, let's go eat, right? So it's a good idea to plant in a polyculture where it kind of confuses things and it breaks it up in a more specific to nature arrangement. And so I think it's important to just understand that when you're planting things as a farmer or as a gardener, think about it in those terms. Think of how nature might want to grow. And it's much easier to grow an entire crop of something, right? Because you're easy to manage, but it's also good to kind of hide things in that polyculture. And so that's really what I've done here in our zone 1 and tried to encourage, that to not only look nice aesthetically, but it's super functional. And, I talked about like, you understand that? I mean, is that making sense to you? Or am I rambling?
No, it is.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out is like, if you're picking plants, so like say rosemary, for example, it's one of my favorite plants because it has so many different functions that it provides. When you're selecting a plant and putting it in the ground, it should have a function, right? And so the different ways that like a plant like rosemary is going to provide you function, let me go through them. So if you're planting in something that's a guild is basically like a way to keep other things out. So you've got maybe a central figure, a peach tree, an almond tree, an apple tree. And then around that, you're going to plant other plants that have certain functions that are going to help to protect that tree, to help build that tree, build the soil around that tree, which is only going to benefit that tree. And so rosemary, for example, the different ways that it's going to provide function in a plant guild or a polyculture, it's going to first, like every plant, it puts roots back into the ground. We don't often think about that when we're planting something, but just think that, yes, you see what you see above the ground. Look at that beautiful foliage, but there's something happening underneath the ground too that is providing function to build the soil. It's not only stabilizing the soil, right, by putting in those roots, but it's exchanging its root exudates. Because what happens is plants, there's certain minerals that the plant needs that may not be bioavailable to the plant. The plant can't just take up manganese, or it may not be able to take up boron, or whatever the mineral is that it seeks. But the mineral is there. The mineral is in the soil. But what you need to do is to encourage the soil life, the microbial activity, the individual microbes to be attracted to that. So what happens in the plant is the plant exudes. They're called exudates. And they exude out of their root system this excretion, and then that attracts these specific microbes to come in and feed upon that. It's like, hey, this is tasty. And they come in and they eat it. And then in turn, they exude it out. They poop it out. And then so therefore, the plant can now eat that. And what they're eating is a partial of the mineral that they need. Maybe it's boron, maybe it's manganese. Now they can take it up, and now the plant has that. And so it's very important to just consider that and know that that's one function that every plant essentially provides. Another thing, like with rosemary, is it's not a shrub, but it grows like a shrub. Over time, it spreads out and it kind of stays low along the ground. And in doing so, it's providing shade. It's regulating the temperature for the soil life that should be there. It's helping to retain moisture, because that's really what it's all about. If you keep the soil covered, you keep the soil moist, things are going to want to grow there, right? You turn over that plywood, that piece of that rock, there's usually shit crawling around. There's soil, right? Because they're like, hey, this is pretty nice here. This is like 70 degrees. I dig it.
Little roly-polies.
Yeah, but if it's like the sun and the rain, it's exposed. So that's another function that it does. It provides ground cover, and that helps to build the soil. And that's really what we're trying to do when we're planting anything as a gardener. We're not as much trying to grow the plant. We're trying to make sure we're protecting the soil, because if you do that, the plant's going to look bitchin'. Mm-hmm. It's going to provide you a good yield. And so that's an important thing to understand. What else does it do? As I mentioned,
it's an herb. You can use it.
Yeah, it's a flowering plant. So it's going to draw in those pollinators, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're going to want to set the blooms on your peach tree, and you're going to want to have things pollinated, right? And that's very important. Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing is just like confusion, like I talked about in the polyculture, right? In the having the different things around that are going to maybe confuse pests. So they're not just going to go, hey, 1,000 acres of corn. They're going to smell rosemary, and there might be sage on the other side of the tree. There might be some oregano. There might be some marjoram. Those are very aromatic herbs. And what that does is it provides that smell that kind of confuses the pests that are going to want to eat maybe your peach tree. So it has that effect, right? Another thing, as you just kind of mentioned, it's a culinary herb, right? You can cook with it. Mm-hmm. Not only can you cook with it, it has medicinal value. You can render down and get the oil out of it and do things with that, right? It has antiseptic properties. It's just, when you're planting something, think about what you're planting and why you're planting it. Don't just go, oh, I like this because of this reason. Think about what else it does.
Yeah.
And that'll teach you to be a better gardener and stock your zone 1 so that it works for you, right? Mm-hmm. It can be anything that you want it to be.
So it has a multifunction.
Yes, multifunctionality should be key. You should plant everything in your food forest or your edible landscape or your garden with kind of that in mind. And I don't think they really talk a lot about that in gardening school. I know my dad didn't ever teach me that because he was more of a traditional gardener. But when you kind of get into this idea of like permaculture and what it does and the reasons why you're doing things.
Did your dad use pesticides? Because his gardens were gorgeous.
He didn't spray pesticides in the food gardens, no. But he would like spray certain things at certain times of the year, maybe to deal with caterpillars and things like that. Sprayed it.
Caterpillars?
Yeah, he sprayed a product called Thuricide, and it has a very distinctive smell that I can smell to this very moment right now. But yeah, he wasn't big on that, but like, when he was at work, they sprayed a lot of that shit in Caltrans, right? Mm-hmm. But we didn't have to eat pesticides. He didn't do that. I mean, we just dealt with the bugs, But it's important to do. Hey, William Zegley in the house, Lewisburg, Tennessee. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hello.
Yeah, Skanes girl. Good evening, Skanes. Hope things are well out there in Kansas land.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope so too. So that's very informational.
Yeah. Well, so for example, like last night, we're talking about garden stuff, and like last night was a perfect example of us being able to take stuff that is fresh, that we grew, some of it right from our zone 1, most of it right from our zone 1. But you made a marinara sauce last night using our onions, using our garlic, using our tomatoes, using our peppers, and fresh herbs from our zone 1. Went out and picked marjoram, oregano, basil, thyme. And it's just like you just walk out your front door and grab that stuff, and then you come in and you cook. And it's just nice to be able to do that, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I mean, we can do that any time of the year with those herbs because they're a perennial. And generally speaking, we harvest plenty of it in the summertime. And then you can dry it, you can freeze dry it. And so we always have that stuff. And herbs are one of those things that is one of the most expensive things per pound that you could actually buy. If you go and you look at that, it's incredibly expensive for a little tiny thing of herbs, right?
Yeah. And I would say that it tastes much different than a sauce you would buy from the store. Mm-hmm. That taste like a jarred sauce. This had a very fresh
Mm-hmm.
flavor to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. That's the way to go. But hey, why do that? Why go through all that work? You can just go to the store and buy some ragu,
Yeah.
some Prego.
And have no idea how long it's been sitting.
Yeah. Or what's in it, actually. What's this potassium sorbate thing do? What's that for? But anyhow,
Yeah.
little permaculture lesson for this evening. I thought we'd talk a little bit about gardening because it's that time of year, guys.
And you've brought in some peaches, so they're starting.
Yeah, we've done a lot of freezing this year for the fruit that we have harvested because, of course, when you have things in abundance, you're either giving it away or you're feeding it to your chickens or you're getting sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year made a concerted effort to get some of the berries that we grew, frozen, and I'm using them daily. Peaches, apricots, all that fruit goes into my protein shakes that I make and consume daily. So it's just smart to food preservation, right?
They're nice to go on a salad. Not necessarily the ones that are frozen, mind you. We have ones that are not frozen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Gosh darn it, man. It was Independence Day. We just missed, we just had that happen a couple days ago, 4th of July. And I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. It was good for us. We are old people, so we don't get out too late. We rarely anymore go out and see the light show in town because,
we don't have little people who really enjoy it and kind of get excited over it. However, our daughter did call and say, "Hey, aren't you coming over for 4th of July?"
Mm-hmm.
And we actually were in bed.
Mm-hmm.
That's to show you that we are old people.
Yeah. It was still daylight out, and we're like laying back, like, yeah, let's call it an evening. let's just adjourn.
But we did go ahead and get up, throw on some clothes, and go over to her house, and that was a nice visit.
Yeah, always nice to see the grandkids.
And our daughter's a photographer, so she was very into taking pictures.
Yep. So just having the 250th year celebration of our nation, I think it means something very different to almost everyone. And, it's got me thinking about what freedom really means for me. And I guess I'd have to say that it's all about self-reliance, more or less, being self-reliant and standing on your own 2 feet, taking responsibility for your life and not leaning on the government to solve problems. And, everybody's got their own take on it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Rebecca, or anybody else out there. What does Independence Day mean to you? And how do you go about balancing the independence that you seek with the support systems that society has in place?
It's interesting that we have a day we celebrate for independence. Now I understand it's geared around a commemoration
of a particular day.
Yes. But it's something I think we should actually celebrate all the time. Mm-hmm. and work on our own independence. We shouldn't have a day that not that we couldn't have a day that we're celebrating independence, but it should be an everyday thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say, mm-hmm. is working on your own independence to be as independent as you possibly can. Obviously, 100% independent is quite difficult.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anybody that's doing that. I mean, very rarely, if they are doing that, you don't know about them, mm-hmm. right? If there's people that are out there completely independent of the system, you don't know their name because they're not on the internet. They're not doing the things that we're all doing. They probably don't have a bank system and a bank account.
No social security card, no driver's license.
And when I'm talking about, the things that society has in place, if you're using the roads, you're using the infrastructure that society has in place, mm-hmm. right? So you would have to be completely out there in the wilderness just on your own. And I don't think anybody's doing that. We're all tied in some way to the system. So I guess my question is how do you balance seeking that autonomy, that freedom, with the recognition that we are all tied to the system, like it or not, right?
Yes, it's actually kind of somewhat frustrating, I should say. For example, we had the batteries, and you think you're generating your own power, which you are, but you're not cut from the system. It still runs through PG&E.
That's our scenario. You can easily like develop a system where you're not tied to that. That's just the way we've got it set up. So
you can, but I'm using that as an example.
Yeah. I'm actually okay being tied to that, because it's nice to have the ability to tap into the grid when you need to tap into the grid. We're mostly self-generating our own power for the most part all day. It really cuts our cost to nothing because we create an excess. So I kind of get what you're saying there, but I don't think anybody's exempt from the system. And how do you balance that? Are you just a recognition that you have that you're okay with?
Again, and maybe this isn't the answer that you're looking for.
I'm not looking for any answer in specific. I'm just asking you a question.
But I would say that you try to do as much as you can for yourself without counting on the system, so that if the system goes down, if there's some reason that the power goes out, you still have the ability to cook on your wood stove or have a backup on how you can continue to manage your life.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. I think that's an important recognition, and to have, some levels of redundancy, but also be looking at the things that are most important to you with an eye on redundancy. So have different sources of water that you can tap into. If something goes down with that water system, your well goes out, you've got backup. You've got storage somewhere else that's not like you're like, oh, I got no water. So find the things that are the most important to you and get those redundancies in place so that you have some level of peace of mind, knowing that if shit gets really bad, then we're good. And I think that's one of the beautiful parts about recognizing the value of freedom, because, we can celebrate all of the things that are going on in our country for whatever reasons you think we need to celebrate them, whether it's like, hey, look at the military, cool, right? But like, that's not going to do anything to make your life better on a given day. So I think it's important that we recognize what we can do individually, right? And I think we're doing that. I hope everybody else is too. Jeffrey Langley. Hey, man, thanks for joining us. Says excellent information as usual. Yeah, appreciate that, man. I don't even know what we're going to talk about half the time. I just kind of jot a few things down and then we get on here and just kind of ramble on. And, I appreciate folks dropping in and spending a little bit of time, because it's cool. So
yeah, we enjoy all of you coming and listening to us say whatever it is we have to say.
Right. So do you got that microphone close enough to your face? Because I can't hear you breathing.
You can't hear me breathe. You want up here?
I like it
close.
I like it when I can hear you exhale your. Okay. Oh man.
Well, I could be like your bot. How would you like it to sound?
I don't know. How would you like it to sound? I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about some of the things that I've been hearing, out and about, maybe geopolitically or otherwise, politics, right? And one of the things that I was pretty glad, well, this isn't geopolitics, this is just more or less local politics and within our country. But I was really glad to see how unified the public was on a particular issue, where they were opposed to a provision that had been put into the big, beautiful bill, right? As it's been coined, this bill. And the opposition was so strong that there were so many voices that were opposed to this provision that it forced lawmakers to remove it altogether. And it's pretty rare that even politicians, I think they were probably more or less forced to do this because of the public outcry on both the left and right. There's not really that I can see a defined separation. It's just people, I think, feel I think it's a bad idea when we start going after public lands. And that's what I'm referring to, which was something that was put into the bill by, I believe, Senator Mike Lee out of Utah. And it was a proposal to sell off millions of acres of public land to help fund, some different things. I think it was coined as something to do with low income housing or whatever. But, there's also people that were saying that it was to help fund some of the tax cuts that they put into this bill. So regardless of what the money was going to be used for, it was on the table at some point. And it got repealed. And I was glad to see that. And so I guess what I'm asking you, Rebecca, is what's your take on millions of acres of land that is in a very remote area of just different states that really isn't being utilized? What do you think about that? Is that something that you would be in support of, to bring down the deficit or funding some other program that the public at large thought was in their best interest? Right? Let's say it was to pay off Medicare or pay off some debt that we have in our nation. Do you think that would be an appropriate thing to do?
No, I don't, because I don't think that the money would go to where it was put out there. So say there was all of this property that, hey, we could build and sell it off, and it's going to pay off all of our debt, as you said. I don't see the money filtering to the debt.
Yeah.
So we've got plenty of empty buildings that can be brought back up to code or whatnot without taking away our beautiful open lands that are nice and needed.
Yeah. I'm in concurrence. I concur with that. I don't know. I just can't even imagine that was even something that they thought of doing, but it was glad to see. And the reason why it kind of even came on my radar is because, people in the ultra running community are very, very astute when it comes to getting out in open space. I mean, we go and we run and we recreate and we use these lands that are the Forest Service and the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, and just national parks. I mean, it's a masterpiece of something that this country actually did.
Well, and along with that, there's regulations too that even though you're out there using those lands, you're out there to take care of those lands as well. So, they're very strict on no littering. What you bring in, you pack out.
Well, most people are civilized where they realize, hey, I'm going to not come to a place that's beautiful and then just drop my shit on the ground. I mean, a lot of people, maybe if they're from the city and they're raised that way, I have relatives that used to be like that. Mm-hmm. They'd come up to the ranch and they'd I saw my cousins or whatever, and they'd drop something on the ground, is just the thing to do, drop litter. I'm like, wait a minute, hey, whoa. No, you don't do that here. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah. But that's how they were raised, and so there are people who would do that, but most people are sensible. They're going to pack it in and they're going to pack it out, generally speaking.
Right. And I'm just saying that it's nice that that's in place and that people follow that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I think that, even if people don't use public lands directly, maybe they don't go and use them. They actually benefit them. It benefits everybody by basically preserving the ecosystems, right? It's a habitat for wildlife, which helps to support biodiversity in the environment. It helps to regulate the climate because it's a big carbon sink. it's growing all this carbon, which helps to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
And we would lose that if they took that away and put up buildings.
Right. I mean, look at what it looks like in a city, and then you go out to a national park and you're just like, man, this is beautiful, man. The air's clean.
Yeah. And you look down on the town and it's just like a cloud
of brown.
Yeah.
It sucks. But anyhow, I was really glad to see that. And I was pleased. Usually when they do something bipartisan in Washington, it's more spending, which is kind of frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But this was something that public support turned them on a dime. And I think they would have easily just allowed this to slide through this big, beautiful bill if people didn't see this and go, hey, man, this is not cool. I mean, they had like wide swaths of people that were opposed to this. And I'm a big advocate for having those spaces preserved for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the founder of Chico and slating that there's park area. Now it's much smaller and it's not forest area, but it's slated for recreation.
So you're referring to John Bidwell because you kind of came in the middle there. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's John Bidwell, right?
John Bidwell for Bidwell Park. And it's nice to see that Chico has continued to allow that to be a park and not.
Yeah, it's a centerpiece of that community. Mm-hmm. It's a really nice place for people to go and recreate. And it's great to have that. So let me ask you, Rebecca, because I was giving this some thought. And I would say that now the year's half over, time to reflect on what's one thing that you've done on the homestead that is your best move of the year.
My best move of the year.
Best move of the year. What's the one thing that you've done? And if you need time to think about it, that's fine. I'll go first.
Okay, you go first.
My best move of the year was selling those damn sheep. Right?
Uh-huh.
That's just, like I say, it's something I don't have to deal with right now. Now, if they were in a pasture and we had maybe livestock guardian dogs, it wouldn't be like a big deal. But we have predators around here. Coyotes are out every night. We could hear them. And they come in and do what they do. They don't mess with our cows. Never have. Because a cow's a cow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sheep, they kind of like the way lamb tastes, even without mint sauce and mint jelly. So I had to keep them in a sheep tractor or a pen where I would have to go out daily and get them to come back and forth. It's just one more thing that I don't have to contend with at this point because we weren't doing anything other than selling the livestock, selling the offspring. And it was like a breath of fresh air when we took them and got rid of them. So that's my best move of the year on the homestead. What's your best move of the year?
Yeah, I still would have to think about that. I know one of the things that I really kind of enjoy is selling the chicken eggs and having people wanting to buy them. We have two people who are interested. Mm-hmm. We have one lady who comes up from the Bay Area, and she usually buys once a month. She buys a large sum of eggs from us, and I enjoy her company. She's somebody that just kind of not that I know her because I see her once a month, but has just kind of not, along with selling the eggs, has also kind of become a friend.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's nice. That's nice. It's nice to be able to have those chickens kind of earn their keep in some regard. Mm-hmm. They keep us flush with eggs. We got more eggs than we can eat, obviously. And then essentially the eggs that we sell every year pays for their feed. So we're kind of raising chickens. They're making compost for us, and we're eating eggs as much as we want. Plus we can give them to our family if we so choose. And it doesn't cost us anything other than just the mere fact that we have to deal with feeding chickens and managing chickens. But I enjoy that. You enjoy the other aspects of it. So it's all good. It's a win-win, right?
Yeah. I like I said, I like them. I know that you didn't necessarily want chickens when you were younger, but we have them now, and our grandchildren actually enjoy the chickens as well, and so it's a joy for me. So
yeah. So let me ask you this, Rebecca. What is the one thing that you believed in January that you no longer believe?
I believed that I believed that Trump would, I guess, stay closer to some of the things that he promised, as far as releasing information such as the Epstein files.
So you're going to take this to politics. I thought you said you didn't want to talk about politics.
Well, I didn't want to take it to politics, but also was hoping that he would take the debt more to heart and try to bring that down. That's not anything that's ever been talked about that I really hear. And as well, the people who are very crooked being put behind bars, and that's not happening either. And I really thought that kind of would take place.
Yeah, that's. I won't say that it's interesting you say that, but I will have to say that is exactly what I would say. I actually believed at the beginning of the year that, he was going to be different. And I believed a lot of the things that he said was going to come true. And I don't know if that makes me a fool for falling for it again, but we got the old bait and switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the things that really matter, in my opinion, it's just been a big disappointment for me, right? Now, there's things that we can say, oh, well, that's kind of nice, that's good, or whatever. But like, these are some big things that I think, for me, are.
I got a buzzer going off.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell those folks.
Yeah, it's like a deal breaker for me. I don't know. It's just very disappointing. And so, your tomatoes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hurry back. I can't do this without you. Hurry back. So yeah, guys, I think that's my thing. And with all that's happened recently, with what has been stated, it's just hard. It's kind of hard to believe, but on one hand, it shouldn't be hard to believe, because this government's no different than every other government. They're proving that. And here's just a little clip from some of the things that are taking place regarding this Epstein, in my opinion, debacle. And it's been a debacle from day one, because we were told, yes, the files are on my desk. Yes, there's all of this evidence. And even prior to the people getting into the office, Bongino, big talker, had a podcast. Millions of people listened to him. Big talker about what he knew. Same with Kash Patel. Oh, it's on the FBI. He had all the answers then. So now he has no answers. And so he was either full of shit then, but I tend to think he's more full of shit now. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't have anything to back that on. It's just a gut feeling. But I do feel as though I've been lied to. I do feel as though the Trump administration knows full well what's going on here. And they feel as though they can just say and do whatever they want without any consequence. But I've been sounding the alarm personally myself for some time, just having that concern, hoping that, oh, maybe, we'll just hold out a little hope. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. And it just, the further it gets down the road, there's just more shit that keeps coming out. That's, for me, kind of like a deal breaker. And I'm very frustrated with that. But here's good old Pam Bondi, the brilliant one.
One victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't.
Like before I die, Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So DOJ, FBI conclude Epstein had no client list, committed suicide, and that Jeffrey Epstein committed no blackmail against powerful people. Wow. Donald Trump's Justice Department, FBI, have concluded that they have no evidence that convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or was murdered, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Okay, so much to unpack there. Let's.
So I suppose, if there's no client list, or never was, how is a person in jail for crimes related to sex trafficking? And, how is that even possible? Why isn't she released today?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And so I don't know. I mean, I would ask anybody that's listening to this, do you believe what we're being told from the Justice Department, Trump's Justice Department, and Trump's FBI? Do you believe what they're telling us? Oh, I guess we were wrong all those years.
I personally don't believe them.
I don't think many people do. Seriously, I don't think many people do. And I think a lot of people are kind of pissed off about it. And it's not as much about Epstein and everything. It's that we have a government, apparently, that's willing to cover up children being abused, women being abused and sex trafficked to protect powerful people, because that's what's happened. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of victims, thousands of hours of tapes, we've been told. And nobody's asking to see the tapes, but what we are asking for is justice for those victims. What kind of government do we have that's willing to cover that up? Are you good with that? I'm personally not.
Nor am I.
That's sickening.
Yes.
Right? And so we're supposed to do what now with this new evidence? It's just oh, well, I guess we'll just move on because it doesn't really matter. And that's let's get the big, beautiful bill passed, and let's do some more shenanigans, right? There'll be some other diversionary tactic that the Trump administration rolls out, and then people will be talking about that, and they'll have forgotten all about this.
But I would say that it would be different if it were one of their family members.
Well, I mean, is it different? Possibly, because maybe some of the people that are on that list have the power of the office now. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I'm not saying Trump's on the list and has done anything wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
I'm saying if it were, say, his granddaughter that was being trafficked, the desire to prosecute would be stronger.
Maybe the desire might be there, but you know what? Why is there this secrecy on both sides? Because there's so many people that stand to lose on both sides.
Yeah, something they need to cover up.
Very, very powerful people that are being blackmailed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's why it needs to come out.
Well, again,
I understand that
we're not going to know this. Josh Mitchell in the House says, shouldn't Maxwell be set free if there's no list? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, what's she even in there for? It makes absolutely no sense. And, again, this is very salacious, this type of a topic. And I really don't even like personally talking about it because it's kind of disgusting and sickening. But again, I feel like I've been lied to, and I feel like a fool for having held out hope in January. And so that's where this all originated from, was me asking the question, what's different now that I know in July of 2025 that I didn't know in January 2025, January this year? And lots changed in those 6 months because I had hopes.
Mm-hmm.
And, hopes don't get you very far when you're dealing with politics, apparently. And
I would say hopes and trust that the right thing would be done.
Yeah, and putting your hopes in a particular candidate. There's been a lot of things that Donald Trump has done. This isn't one that I really fucking like. Maybe there's powerful forces that he himself can't even control. But you know what? Don't you think we should know about that? Are they so scared? They've already tried to shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
Right. He's not afraid to come out and say whatever's on his mind. Why is he so quiet about this? Interesting.
It's very interesting.
I mean, is he complicit? Does he have something to hide by being Jeffrey's friend? Or is he just, playing the game that the deep state is telling him to do? They're running their hands up his back saying, this is how it's going to be. He's never been shy on opinions, but he's pretty quiet on this deal. He's pretty quiet on deep state shit right now, isn't he? Just a thought, guys. That's all. Little First Amendment free speech here. Hope the CIA doesn't get pissed that I'm saying this. Yeah, just asking a question. That's all. So anyhow, H-R-Ds, how are you doing? Welcome. Welcome from across the pond. Man, what's the time over there right now? Right? It's got to be morning. It's got to be morning for you. But good evening.
It is evening here.
Yeah, it's getting ready to be like dinner time soon. So we're going to have to get off this thing. But another thing that's been in the news real recently, and I wanted to get your take, and anybody else that has an opinion on this, don't hesitate to sound off and let us know what you're thinking. But Elon Musk, of course, he's had his little riff with Donald Trump. Who knows what that's really all about? We can all speculate whether or not he didn't get his way, which I kind of think that's part of it. I think he thought he had more influence than Trump was willing to give him. In other words, he had a lot of access early on, and they were very chummy and buddy doing whatever they were doing for whatever reasons. And when push came to shove, things didn't go, his way, apparently. And they had this falling out. And there seemed to be, there was going to be some form of reconciliation between the two, a little bit of a cooling off period, if you will, and maybe a walking back of some of the vitriol that was thrown out. But as would have it, things are moving forward yet again. And I think it's really about this whole big, beautiful bill thing. And whether that's because of the EV mandate that was cut, I mean, that's probably a part of it. That's probably a part of it that Elon's pissed about. But I think what he's probably more pissed about, and this is just a speculative thing on my part, I think he's pissed because they're not doing away with all mandates. Elon's actually been on the record of saying as much. Hey, I don't want an EV mandate. They shouldn't be any mandates. You take away the EV mandate, I'm cool with that, but you need to take away oil and gas subsidies as well. But see, they're not doing that. In fact, they've kept shit like that in provisions in bills to prop up those industries. And I think that's where he kind of has a little heartburn that, hey, man, I fucking bent myself over the rails here, gave you a bunch of money, and I'm expecting something in return. What he wanted how it all played out, I don't know. But obviously it's a problem again because of this big, beautiful bill. And I'm totally with him on that, man. I'm not so down with this like big monstrosity that's going to add a bunch of debt to this nation. Again, going back to your point, Rebecca, Trump's kind of a big spender. He's just all about making deals and, hey, I'm getting shit done, and we'll kick the can down the road, and we'll give people tax breaks right now. See, that looks good, sounds good, doesn't it? But guess what? The fucking inflation that's going to happen as we move forward, that's the hidden tax right there. So that's great. $20 an hour minimum wage, that's going to be like the standard. Look where we are. Look at what houses were back in 79. And then you look at them now and you're like, what? The average cost of like what people made was 30 grand?
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing cost anything. But now everything's so goddamn expensive, right? $20 an hour is like, yeah, that's minimum wage.
Yeah.
And
the quality is
right. So I don't know. It's just one of these things. And I think that's what he's really kind of bent about, is the fact that they're not doing anything to curb the enthusiasm for spending in Washington. Right. And his Doge team is kind of getting the bone down. When are they going to ratify and codify some of those cuts that Doge has made? They're not going to. Just like they're never going to release the Epstein list, because that's the government's slush fund, is having the ability to funnel money around. And you don't need to know that, people. You just need to keep going to work, coloring between the lines, and we'll tell you what you need. That's how it's going down, right? There's no meaningful reforms going on in Washington. Not at all. None. Period. End of story. So anyhow, Elon Musk is proposing this thing called the America Party. And I don't know if you've heard much about it, Rebecca, but I do have a little bit of a clip here that might help to bring that to light. So check this out.
Elon Musk says he is doing it. He's forming a new political party. This, of course, widens the rift with President Trump. Musk made his announcement calling for the America Party, and he did it in response to Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill on taxes and spending, which the president signed into law with great Republican fanfare on Friday. One day later, Musk posted, quote, "When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom."
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
He has not filed, Musk has not filed with the Federal Elections Commission yet.
The paperwork's not done.
He's announced it, but the paperwork still needs to be filled out.
Let's see what actually happens on that front, right?
So there you have it. I don't know. What do you think, Rebecca? Does the money that Elon Musk have and the platform that he has with X, does this give him any real chance, or is this just a stunt? Is this just him throwing a tantrum because he's pissed at Trump and he's pissed at how he was treated? What do you think?
I don't think it's going to work. And I think it is a stunt. I don't know that it will go through. If it does go through, I don't think it's actually going to work. As far as
work in what sense?
Well, it'll work in the fact that it will take votes away from Trump, but Trump can't be elected again. So I don't know.
So you mean the Republican Party, not Trump?
Right. So yes.
Right.
However, if Trump continues to go the way he's going, he's taking votes away from the Republican Party anyway. So I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I don't know, man. Here's my thing. I really do think that having only two choices it's not a great thing. However, that's how our system has always been. And that sucks. We've had different parties throughout the years, the Federalists, right? The Whig Party, and then, the Democrat and Republicans and whatnot have been the bulk of how the party structure has been. It's been that binary choice. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I wish we had a better option. The two-party system, it's been basically dominated by those two parties, Democrats and Republicans. And third-party challengers rarely break through because of a lot of things that are in place. The status quo has like all these structural barriers in place, like getting on the ballot or districts being gerrymandered or what have you. And it just makes it extremely hard for third parties to break into the current system. But I really wish that there was another option, and I support him doing whatever he's doing. I don't think that, I think more choice is better than less choice. Right. You've always had the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, and they always put forward these wacky, like just weirdos, man, for the party nominee. Mm-hmm. And so they're very much marginalized, and they're never get their feet off the ground. And they're just more or less a joke. They're kind of in the way. But I think what Musk is trying to do is he's trying to target certain districts and target certain seats, which is going to upset the balance of power. And he feels as though if he can grab, some of those congressional seats, it's going to have more of a voice for the people moving forward. And, I'd be in favor of that. I don't like the idea of like, oh, well, you get Coke or you get Pepsi, because that's what it's been for so long. And again, I thought Trump was different. He's been very different in a lot of ways, but in the ways where it really matters to me, being like you say you're going to be this non-war guy, but then you turn around and fucking like do what you did with Iran. I'm not in favor of that at all. I'm not in favor of the fact that, you get all your people in the positions, and then they don't do anything, or they're told to, nothing to see here, move on.
Yeah. As far as our decision, I think it's obvious that it's what we can see or what we're being told.
Yeah.
I guess I would love to be a fly on the wall, to actually know exactly everything that's happening and everything that's being said, to have a valid decision one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. None of us will ever know. It's just more or less speculative. But again, we're just trying to do our best here in trying to navigate what's happening in the world around us so we can make informed decisions about, what we think about things, right?
Yeah. You want to believe what somebody's telling you is the truth. But when you see what's going on, you have reservations, and you're just like, whoa, I think it would be irresponsible of me just to like go, oh, well, he's better than the last guy. I voted for him. He's, there's some shit that I really like, but man, there's some stuff I don't like. And then just to keep my tongue and do like most people do, like on the Democrat side, you got a president who's a freaking corpse, and he's a total disaster, and you don't say anything, despite the fact that it's obvious to everyone else, just because your media is sitting there covering it all up, and somehow it makes it like, oh, okay, well, at least it's not Trump. And you say nothing about it until he gets to the debate, and then all of a sudden, well, I think we need to flip the script. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. They were all on board. And that's just the way a lot of people roll. They just, I'll just kind of keep my mouth shut, not voice my opposition. But, I was enthusiastic about Trump. I'm not so much right now. I'm just not.
I would say my opinion is changing. But I do have some, I guess, reservation.
Yeah.
I don't know how much actual bitterness there is between him and Elon. I know what we're seeing.
Yeah.
But I just have this gut feeling that we will see Elon back in the White House.
You think it's a show? You think
I kind of do.
Yeah.
I kind of do. But that's just a gut feeling. I have nothing to go by. I have nothing to, and I'm not.
So you're keeping hope alive.
It's not even that. Like I said, it's just a gut feeling. It's like when you see somebody.
Trust your gut.
It's like when you see somebody and you get a feeling about them.
Yeah.
Maybe you hear them talk one sentence and you're like, whoa, I just really, and you don't know anything about that person.
You gotta trust your gut.
But you have a gut feeling about anyway. So that is the way I feel about him and Trump, Elon and Trump. I just have this.
Nice.
I don't know.
Nice.
I think that Trump owes Elon a lot. And so I guess maybe that is why I feel this way.
Right.
Because Elon has put so much into Trump.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. I hope your gut's correct because my gut doesn't tell me that, but that's okay. That's why we have our own guts.
That's right.
Hey, Trudees is in Tucson tonight. So yeah, that's cool. Welcome to the warm Arizona evening sun.
Yeah.
Arizona's a beautiful place. They got some great sunsets and
They do have some nice sunsets.
Yeah. Sunrises is pretty amazing.
Some pretty awesome cactus.
Yeah. I hope to be out there in October, going back for a race out there. And
pretty sweet spiders.
Yeah. They got cool tarantulas running around at night. So yeah, it's all good. But hey, I think I want to end with this, guys. We've been rambling on and I kind of went down a politics vein there toward the end, but I think these are things worth talking about and revisiting and just kind of kicking around as ideas. Mm-hmm. I know everybody's kind of has an opinion on things. Maybe you want to voice that opinion, and we certainly encourage that here. If you have something to say, sound off. We're equal opportunity listeners as well as offenders. So here's the did you know for this evening, and we'll end it at this. Did you know that in 1992, billionaire Ross Perot ran as a third-party candidate, snagging nearly 19 million votes, which was about 19% of the total, making him the most successful third-party contender since Teddy Roosevelt did that back in 1912. But even with all that, he didn't win a single electoral vote, showing how brutal America's two-party system is for outsiders like Elon Musk and his proposed America Party. So I think time will tell. We'll just kind of see where this thing goes. Obviously Elon really hasn't expressed a whole lot regarding how this is all going to work and what his positions are in the platform and whatnot. But I'm in favor of more choice rather than less choice in this country. And I certainly think that we need that every bit now as we've ever needed that. Mm-hmm. So again, want to thank you guys for joining us this evening. And I think we are going to wrap things up. And, I hope everybody has a great, great week moving forward. So much opportunity to just reevaluate where you are and make sure that the things that are most important to you are being addressed and, you're meeting your own needs and concerns, because we're going to do that here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, why don't we have you take us out, Rebecca? Because I know that you've got some closing words prepared for us and some.
Now, we just discussed that this is as big of a surprise for me as it is for our listeners. But I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July.
Yeah.
And got to see some pretty awesome fireworks. Nobody blew off their hand because we did watch some videos that showed some pretty nasty moves. Yeah. And that you're all happy, healthy, and we hope to see you again next week.
That's right. That's another wrap on Porterhouse and Teal, episode 116. And we thank you guys for joining us. We'll see if we can't come back next week. Wait a minute. Josh Mitchell's got a fun fact here. He says, fun fact, during the founding years of the United States, we had 100 plus political parties. Huh.
Wow.
I was unaware of that. That's an interesting statistic. I'd be interested to know, like.
Well, I know who you're going to ask.
Oh, yeah. I'll go on to Grok, and I will ask Grok if they know anything of that and see what comes up, because that's a pretty useful bit of information. I like to learn things because I don't know it all, but I like to learn the things that I don't know because.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that information.
Yeah. Right on, Josh. Thanks for joining us again tonight. And we're going to get out because I think it's got to be getting close to dinner time. I'm hungry.
Me too.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Good evening.
All right.